Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Dr. Marie took us out to 2030, so unfortunately I've got to bring you back to 2016. Okay. I guess what we've seen, and you've seen through the globe and through different industry types, is really organizations implementing workplace strategy, not only to contain real estate costs, but also to drive productivity of their workforce, to drive employee well-being and wellness, innovation, and to retain and attract talent, and really to drive overall business performance. So we've really seen the emerging of the role and importance and the role of the CRE actually becoming more important, but also the need to have closer collaboration between CRE, IT, and HR. So this evening, we're very fortunate to have an esteemed panel here to talk about workplace strategy from an India context. So welcome to our panel discussion. So I'll go around and introduce our panel. Let me just sit down. First panelist and first guest is Dayaka Reddy. Dayaka is Senior Vice President and Head of Corporate Real Estate for Capgemini. He brings with us over 25 years of diverse experience in creating, managing, and directing business-driven technology outcomes. He's held several leadership roles in IT services management, large-scale account management and distributed global delivery, and has worked with organizations such as State Bank of India, GE Money, and ANZ. Welcome, Dayaka. Our next panelist is Arun Khanna. Arun's head of corporate real estate for UHG in India, Philippines, and Ireland. Very nice combination. Arun has gained vast experience from his various leadership roles at Insignia Brook, DLF, and HSBC. In fact, I met Arun in HSBC many, many years ago, and he hasn't changed a bit, so welcome. He's known to be a pioneer of the real estate industry in India, so we're very pleased to have you with us today. Welcome. Our next panelist, the rose amongst other flowers here, Chavi Bhargava. Chavi is CEO of TNS India and Sri Lanka. She joined TNS 8 years ago and has over 22 years of experience in the research industry and has also held roles with IMRB, Millward Brown prior to joining TNS. And specifically to our topic today, her team and her have adopted a new workplace strategy and have successfully transitioned to a fully enabled activity-based workplace. So welcome, Chavi. Up next, we've got Deepak Olian. Deepak is Executive Director of Global Facilities Management at Dell. He's a key driver for Dell's conservation and green energy strategies. He has 25 years of experience in various leadership roles in GE, Genpact, and Tata Tea. He's been with Dell for over 8 years, where he's responsible for developing and implementing business plans, supporting the continued growth and success of Dell businesses in South Asia market. Okay. And finally, we have someone a little bit different. Well, they're all different, actually. But a CFO, Sandeep Agarwal. Sandeep is CFO, Chief Financial Officer for Aon. He is responsible for the financial health of Aon's business in 14 countries in Asia Pacific. And Sandeep has over 20 years of experience across organizations such as AF Ferguson, Ericsson, Aon, and he's been with Aon for more than 12 years. So welcome, Sandeep. Okay, Chavi and gentlemen, welcome, and thank you for your time this evening. I'm sure you're a bit hungry, so I'll try and get through this a little bit quicker. But I'll just start with a warm-up question. In fact, all my questions are warm-up questions, so they're very easy, as you know. First question for you, Dayaka. Workplace strategy means different things to different organizations. You know, it could be people-based strategies or workplace-based strategies, agile work, hot desking, and so on. I guess I think we're keen to understand, what does workplace strategy mean to you and to Capgemini, and how has it evolved over the years?
Okay, for me, I think so the way we look at the real estate 3 years back to now is very different. So therefore, I think the workplace strategy for us is in terms of optimize the human asset to the best extent. I think that's fundamental to core to the workplace strategy. What it means is that it could be private offices, flex offices. I think we have referred to sometimes in terms of how do we create more creative workspaces. And sometimes I think, the flex office is becoming a reality. How do we support it without compromising on the client confidentiality and some of those things? So in short, I think it's all about optimizing your workforce capability, at the same time ensuring that the client confidentiality, everything is protected. And the human well-being, I think, is coming into more and more. I think, we are now publishing the oxygen, the lux levels, everything, on our buildings. If I see 3 years back, I don't think all our campus is Wi-Fi enabled. But today, I think, the strategy is mobile first and cloud first. Given that, how do you support the mobile devices everywhere for you to be part of the workplace? I think, how do you support that? I think several things coming together, I think, is what the workplace strategy is for us.
Okay, all right. And have you seen it evolve drastically over the last few years in Capgemini?
Significantly, last 12, 18 months. And as we see it, I think, 12 to 18 months is going to be even, so the rule of thumb, the thumb rule is what happened in 3 years perhaps will happen in next 1 year, and
Right.
what will happen in 1 year will happen in 3 months.
Yes.
I think that's the pace at which I think, things will move.
Okay, all right, exactly that's what Marie was talking about as well. And Arun, what about you in UHG? Have you had, what does it mean to you, and how has it progressed in your organization?
I think it's a fairly complex, because it has to be different for different requirements. I'll just share with you, we have a legacy portfolio where the vacancy rate is as high as 27%. So there the workplace strategy is totally different. It'll have to be, now we have some retail requirements as well. So there the requirement would be much different. Sales people are sitting, so the seat utilization is as high as 1:5. Whereas on the other part, we have a vacancy rate of 27%. So it has to be very different, while trying to design offices for the production area, so to say, whether it's a development work or BPO work or contact center work, the design standards or workplace standards would be very, very different as compared to where, let's say, the enabling functions sit. The requirements, the ratios, the interaction areas, the meeting rooms, training rooms, etc. That will be very different from the let's say, the earlier part. And then you come to the top of the end, or top of the pyramid, when you're designing a corporate office. It will have to be very different. The density changes probably 5 times. It increases 5 times as you go down the pyramid. Corporate office having a 250 square feet per workstation space is kind of normal. And production areas, we are always struggling to reduce those couple of square feet for every workstation. Earlier it used to be 100 or 105. Now we have reached a level of 80. And now the next phase would be probably reducing it further by 10 to 15%, probably reaching below 70 square feet. So the idea is to optimize. Workplace strategy has to be, it'll have to be differentiated depending on the requirement. In US, where we have 27% vacancy, I think the strategy has to be no more offices.
Okay.
Learn to use what you have better. While here we have to, the churn and the growth rate is pretty high because of the labor arbitrage and the cost arbitrage. Here the challenge is to reduce costs. So it's different for different requirements.
Okay, all right. And I'll just jump across to Sandeep from a CFO perspective. I guess, what do you see are the primary drivers for organizations looking at implementing workplace strategy programs? I mean, have you seen it changed over the years, post GFC to today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think things like densification and those things, I think they are things of the past. So we don't look at those things. I think now, if I look at the drivers, I think it has to be a nice balance between the business outcomes and the people outcomes that we want to drive as part of the overall experience that we want to create for our workforce. As a matter of fact, we talk about the millennials. Half of our workforce is in that category. So their aspirations are very, very different. And I think, if you talk to people today, in terms of what they expect from a workplace environment perspective, they talk about all the things, that we saw today in the presentation and what some of my colleagues already covered. And I think this is actually is a primary driver or a primary value proposition for the organizations. When we look at and think about what we have to do, to create that work environment wherein we have people who are completely engaged and more productive. So I think we are looking into all these aspects. And the cost, obviously, as a CFO, I can talk about myself. So ROI becomes very, very critical. But as we are actually trying to become more dynamic and trying to meet people expectation, the thing is that so you see those tangible benefits as well as those indirect or intangible benefits that you see. Tangible benefits, as we are going more mobile, trying to provide that work from home facilities. So obviously the cost per seat is coming down. At the same time, I think the people experience is improving, though we have to invest more in technology, and I think we heard 50-50 is the norm, which should be there. So obviously there is more investment, but you have avenues, how you can actually invest more and more in, in enabling that kind of a work environment. So people engagement, they're feeling more productive, your attrition reduces, so those are, direct benefits that you see. So I think, yeah, so it's a fine balance between, what we expect from a business or a P&L perspective as well as from a people perspective.
Have you been able to measure the intangible benefits in terms of productivity and so on?
Absolutely. I think, one of the, actually intangibles ultimately become tangible benefits, when you look at this. So attrition, for example, if we talk about the ITS industry, attrition is one of the biggest cost drivers, so industry operate in 30-35% range. For us, it has always been around 20-22%. So that actually gives you so much of opportunity. And when you actually go around and talk to people, do those engagement surveys, so workplace environment becomes a very critical factor. And that is one of the USPs that we count for ourselves. So there is a absolute direct tangible benefit that you can see.
Okay, sure. I expected that from you. Chavi, you successfully implemented a new workplace at TNS, and I think you were saying earlier in November, wasn't it?
Yeah, last November.
So from your experience in working through that whole program, what factors were critical to the successful adoption of this workplace initiative in TNS?
So I think one of the reasons we went into this was we are a market research company, and traditionally we had loads of papers and everybody needed these fixed seats and stuff. But technology took paper away out of our lives, and today we do like all our data collection using technology. And we were facing a high attrition and very difficult to get people. And somebody made a comment, which young one is wanting to come and work in an office like this, the traditional office, everybody's got these high walls and stuff. And this happened not only for us in India, but in the other countries in APAC, and we as region decided that we were going to change our workplaces. We want a millennial to come in and say, I want to work here. And Sandeep mentioned about 50% or 40% of their folks are millennial. We are like 90% millennial. The average age is 27 or 25 kind of a thing. If they could work younger, they would be there. And we decided that we wanted to kind of create something where we could attract people, and people wanted to work with us, and it would be engaging. And I think we are somewhere close to the 50-50 balance of me and we. And technology's enabled us in a friendly way, but I think people are just loving it. Initially, there was a huge resistance, and expectedly from the seniors who would be losing their 10 by 12 and huge cabins. I had a cabin where 12 people could sit in the same time, kind of a thing I was sharing with somebody. But I think the challenge was to how to get people involved. And then this started first in our Sydney office. And then there was like a competition. Which office was going to better the other one in terms of design and creativity? And one of my challenge was, how was I going to show my new office to the rest of the region, There was creativity around the announcement also. So getting the people involved was very important. And I think we went around it in a very scientific way, which really helped. And we did a JLL helped us in the workplace strategy, so we knew how many meeting rooms we needed and how many collaboration areas, so that nobody would be grumbling that we've got it wrong, and I think we got it 90% right. So that's really, really helped, and the fact that the seniors did what they were asking the others to do. So I don't have a desk. I come in the morning and I find a new place every day. And it's really, really helping the team work, and people are finding they know their colleagues in other teams better. So the challenge was really about lead by example and involving them. And we've added about half an hour, 20 minutes to everybody's traveling time, but no one has grumbled. And they're very, very proud, and they want to invite the family. So they were saying, let's have a family day and let them see where we work, kind of a thing.
Well, I like the competition bit, actually, just getting some competitive spirit into it.
Oh, our regional CEO was too bad at that, I would say. He would like send mails every few weeks and say, this one's ready and all kind of thing.
Excellent, very good. And Deepak, what about Dell? What do you feel are, or your own experience, what do you feel are the
So
critical?
firstly, I love this topic.
Yeah.
Which is
Oh.
rethink imagineering the future.
Yes.
It's fantastic. So in Dell, luckily we've got this open workstation concept. My previous company, it was very difficult managing the cubicles. I think half my job or my day went in who sits in which cube and who's unhappy in which one and which new cube you create. So that's all gone. I mean, we've got open spaces, thankfully. Even the new facilities that we're setting up, we are even creating lesser conference rooms. We're creating more collaborative spaces. So we take feedback from the employees, more collaborative spaces. Hot desking, so 20% of our new offices are hot desking. So we do not give businesses 100% of the space that they ask for. And they're all happy with it. We're managing more with less space. It's just that the office environment has to be creative and exciting. There was a time when a couple of years back, there was this chill zone which was created. So all the top performers got an access to the chill zone. They had gaming stations, then they had all the fun activities. So you got to make the workplace exciting at the moment. And it doesn't really matter that, so that concept is gone where I'm anchored to my workstation and I'm mostly attached to this space that I am, and if I have a larger space, I'm more productive, which doesn't really make sense. If I have a 10 by 10, doesn't make me more productive. It's just the space where I am. And I mean, the concept is going to change from my physical space to my office in my pocket. And your smartphone is going to do everything for you. You don't have to be anchored to any space. You don't need a phone today. You got laptops. You can work anywhere you want. So the trend's really changing, and it's the youngsters. We even looked at work from home. So I was talking to somebody in the morning saying work from home really doesn't work well with the younger millennium populations. They want to come to office, they want to collaborate, they want to meet people, they want to sit in the cafeterias, they want to network. So you can't push them. It's for old people like me, it's okay, you can work from home sometimes. But for them, they want to be there. So you got to build new spaces based on the feedback and them, and leverage technology. That's the main piece there.
Okay, good. Very some useful tips there. Thank you. And Arun, UHG is a large organization with over 200,000 staff globally, and many national organizations have global workplace strategy programs that they're rolling out across the globe. In India, because I guess the workforce, as I think someone mentioned earlier, is very labor intensive with the BPO outsourcing and all that. Do you feel that there's customization or localization that's needed in India for the cultural aspects or different business environment aspects?
Yeah, yes and no, because there are some aspects which can, for me, like, I have to, the churn rate is very high. So I have to, produce those capacities very, very quickly. And if I let every architect, allow his creative juices to flow every time, it becomes very, very difficult. So, it becomes almost cookie cutter in some aspects. If I have, the first thing which I did when I joined this organization was to evolve those office standards. And depending on the kind of business we have, 3, 4, 5 office standards we have. And anywhere I get a requirement, I know what to do. So there are office areas or production areas, as I may call, which will be very, very similar anywhere in the world. If it is a contact center, it will be very similar in Brazil as in Philippines.
Okay.
a software unit, it will be very similar in Ireland as in Bangalore. And so on and so forth, you know. And whereas there are some areas which require customization, like you know, the toilets have to be designed differently. The local bylaws, bylaws have to be respected. And unfortunately, you know, in India, every city may have a different bylaw or set of requirements. You know, and there are some guiding principles which may be common, but you have to adhere to the local laws. The common areas, density requirements may be very different. And then you have to straddle with the local real estate players. You know, the kind of carpet areas you get for a given leased area may be very different in different countries, different cities.
Okay.
So, you know, for 100 square feet, you may get 60 square feet in one city, and in other city, you may actually get 100 square feet. So everything will have to be built around that, and then we have our finance guys, you know, looking very closely at the workplace densities, the cost per desk. So you have to, you know, customize things accordingly.
Okay. And Chanvi, what about you? How much customization or localization has it been for what you've done in India?
So what we have done is that, like Arun said, there are certain standards. So we won't start, you know, talking again, should I have this table size and this kind of a chair and stuff like that. But there is creativity around the collab areas and then some localization. So, I mean, that's what we have done depending on what some of the local people want. And the number of collaborative areas have varied a little bit in certain places. Okay. But we've stuck to some standards and some creativity.
Okay, very similar. Okay. A recent Gartner report suggests that over 40%, and I think Sandeep and Chavi, you mentioned about your workforce being millennials. By 2017 and 18 will be millennials, and that their expectations from the workplace will be significantly different from other generations or past generations. So I guess, Dayaka, probably, how are you balancing the space with all these, I guess, mixed workforce?
So one is the workforce itself, but I think the kind of work you're doing is also changing significantly, right? You know, if I look at 10 years back, I think, you know, most of the technology work used to happen in the back end, right? In terms of the core systems, releases, fixes, you know, lot of that kind of a work. I think by design, most of the investments is moving from back to front, which means it's moving into the mobile space, it's into the customer experience space. So a lot of it is changing. So as we are moving that, I think we could also see the workforce changing accordingly. I think, you know, you could see in the old world, working on the core systems, it used to be much more seniors, respected for what they know about the core system. You know, 20 years he's been working on the system, therefore he's an expert. I think not so really in these days. I think, you know, and our delivery cycles in the old days used to be like, you know, you do a release every 2 months. Today, I think, you know, you expect a functionality to be released every day or every second day. And previously, I think, you know, if you really look at most of the production work used to happen at back office or in India. Today, I think most of the development happens in a collaborative way. So I think, you know, at a collaboration, not necessarily within the workspace, but global workforce, right? You know, if people are in Netherlands, the clients are in Netherlands, how are you working with their IT teams together in a collaborative workspace becomes very essential. So to that extent, I think, you know, you got to understand these things of the evolving work nature is changing, the people requirements are changing. Therefore, I think, you know, you have to understand them and change. But very important question is, a lot of times nobody asks you to change.
Yes.
But who drives the change? Who initiates the change? Right? For example, I may be knowing 20% in terms of the new workplace strategy, what's going to come. The boss who is going to approve a business case of a 10 million, if it doesn't even understand 2% of what's happening in the workplace. Right? So a lot of times you do focus group meetings and elicit ideas from people.
Yeah.
But people sometimes have expectations. So I think people sitting in this room, people, I think, you know, who are the change makers? I think, you know, we got to take this. So therefore, we got to push the change.
Okay.
We got to take the responsibility. And within that, I think, how do you involve your management? How do you involve your people? How do you create that particular mechanism for you to work efficiently? I think is what I found to be very, very useful to meet all these stakeholders' requirements.
Yes.
But you be in the upfront of leading the change, not necessarily wait for the change to hit you.
Okay, all right. No, very much a change management process, isn't it? And Deepak, what about you in Dell? What's your experience in terms of this mixed
So I think
workforce?
customization is, so while we have global standards, I mean all standards don't apply in every area, they've got to be customized to the region. Spaces like the R&D folks need certain workstation designs, especially designed for them. But the rest of them, so like Arun mentioned, the contact center spaces have to be designed, in a similar manner. But for everybody else who doesn't have to be on a seat, the employees themselves really don't want to have fixed stations. They want more collaborative spaces. So whenever we're making new setups, and we've done refurbishments internally, and we've created more areas where they can sit and collaborate, more whiteboards in the workstations. They can sit and whiteboard rather than sitting in the conference rooms. The whole concept of what's also changing is the meeting rooms. You don't have to be in the meeting rooms. Like my HR head, so whenever I'm in Bangalore and I have a 101, it's never in the office. We take a walk. So he says, let's take a walking 101. So it's pretty difficult to walk, strategize, think, and collaborate while you're walking, but it's very effective at the end of the walk. So it's not. So it's got to be. It's very different. It's got to be. It's not just fixed meeting rooms.
Okay. I'm just going to move on to, there was a study here. It's shown that employees who have more choice and flexibility in their work environments are happier and more productive and innovative. And there was a recent Trench Health survey that showed that happier employees demonstrate a 300% increase in effective hours. Chanvi, are you starting to experience that in your workplace?
Well, I do see much more energy.
Yes.
300 times effectiveness, no. But I think they are much more engaged in the work they are doing and with the people around them. So that's a big difference for sure. We've been having work from home from a long time, so that's because we have a lot of females in our industry also. So that difference still continues. I mean, that's not made a huge impact, but I think I can see many more groups sitting together and working, and also we have a lot of different seats. So I see there, in the beginning, first 2 months was very interesting. People used to come early to be able to try a new type of workstation, kind of a thing. I think it brings energy for sure, brings pride in some ways and a higher level of engagement, which then leads definitely to better efficiency.
Okay, but not 300%.
Not 300%.
Okay, all right.
I would love it, but it doesn't happen.
And Sandeep, I know you're just exploring, you mentioned earlier about intangible and tangible benefits. I guess for you, how are you measuring the success of people's happiness or the...
So I think one obvious tool that we use is the employee engagement survey, that is an annual exercise, through which you actually cover a lot of work environment related questions and figure out, how people are feeling, about the ultimate experience that they're having. Apart from that, in your regular chats and town halls and meetings, so there are, ways you can figure out, so what's the pulse on the floor, and how do we actually then move very quickly in terms of what is the need from the employees. So there are, those ways and means that we use, and then take very serious action, if there are things which are actually not working, and wherein we need to, really improve.
Okay, all right, excellent. Just a last question I'm going to get to before I'm going to ask the audience whether they've got any questions. Based on experience in implementing workplace strategy programs, we know it's important for the teams to work together, the facilities team, the projects team with IT and in HR. To ensure that the programs are effective and sustainable. How have you, I guess I'm going to direct it to Arun, how have you actually brought the teams together? I mean, what have you done in your environment?
Yeah, it's a big challenge, big requirement working, and especially in large organization matrix-based management systems where everybody has their own priorities. Working together is always very challenging. Having said that, you have to continue to communicate, continue to negotiate. You don't win all battles, but I think Data helps, benchmarking helps, your track record helps,
Okay.
and your maturity does help, and maturity of the senior leadership as well. You know, everybody in any organization, there would be somebody higher up who would generally have a veto power if there is a difference of opinion, which does happen sometimes. So, you know, if you're able to, if you're yourself convinced that, you know, you're trying to do the right thing, it becomes a lot more easier. And once you are successful in your pilot, the proof of concept is there. After that, it's a lot more easier. Everybody starts respecting you and probably, you know, feels that this can be done, this can be achieved, the results can be achieved. So, you know, in that you can and you should take help of external agencies as well. You know, I've used JLL extensively, and the data produced by them, the data brought to the table by the consultants, the benchmarks which they bring, you know, that's a big tool for you to convince the entire team, whether it's a design issue or a specification issue or some major changes. You know, just to give you an example, you know, we try to de-layer our offices, and we have pretty large offices in my division, you know, ranging from anywhere between 1,000 to 2,500 people in one office. In one of the you know, offices in Hyderabad, we have 1,100 people just on one floor, 1,100 desks. So, you know, and we just have, across the portfolio of almost 25,000 workstations, 3 kinds of tables. So de-layering, trying to bring people out in the open, reducing the number of cabins, increasing the interactive areas. So a lot of negotiations, a lot of discussions were required. And you know, it's not too difficult, but in a large organization, democratic organization, it's not fast.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, I see. And Jayaka, same question to you. How have you worked to integrate the teams?
No, I think any new idea. I think, you know, you could do a lot of things when you are growing organization. You are building up a lot of new capacity, right? It becomes a little more easier, right? Retrofit your existing organization with new thoughts and try to really bring that change. It's a 2x cost with no benefit as it is, right? So therefore, whenever you are doing a new thing, I think, you know, it's always try to you know, walk through the you know, at least what we say is fingerprinting with key people. You do that, but what matters is, I think, your own credibility matters a lot.
Right, okay.
Right, you know, as a leader, if you're committed to something,
Yes.
more often than not, people will follow you.
Okay.
If you yourself is expecting everybody to accept, and then you will execute, I don't think it's going to work.
Okay.
So therefore, I think good part for me is all my center heads who run all my delivery centers also will, you know, work with me. So therefore, it is the responsibility of those people to really socialize the things at their respective centers. It works well for me. I think I don't see that as a problem at all.
Okay, good. Well, all good thoughts and good views and tips here. I was just going to ask the audience whether there's any questions out there for our panelists. We've got 5 different experiences here that you can learn from. Sudhi?
What we've seen in workplaces, usually finance is usually the one department which is most difficult to convince, saying, let's change the way your work environment works. And typically, I mean, finance teams are pretty much stationed at a desk, aren't as mobile, say, sales or your front-ending stuff. How's the change been for you and your team in your workplace when, you know, you've changed kind of the environment?
Yeah, I think so. This question comes almost every day. You know, especially I can share my own experience. So when I work across multiple geographies, so you have, you know, those requirements that come from the business. Okay, we need to change the office infrastructure and all those things. Obviously, you know, as a finance person, you have to then, you know, evaluate the business case and the ROI and all that stuff. At the end of the day, I think we recently, you know, concluded one project in Australia, wherein, you know, we are actually refurbishing the entire office space. So we have like 2,000 people in Sydney, and it's a very well laid out office, and I've been there many a times. So this thing came up, and, you know, we were actually doing leadership meeting there, and this thing came up that we need to change the office environment. There is a need to do something different. So the initial thought, that comes across is, why we actually need to do that. It's a very well laid out office, and why we need to incur those $10 million, $15 million worth of expenses to refurbish this thing. But then, when you actually go into the details, and when you look at the rationale, yes, we are growing our business by 10, 20%. What are the options, if you want to grow in next 3 to 5 years? One is obviously, we need to be more flexible in our thinking as well as in our design, how we want to design the future office. Rather than taking 2 additional floors, maybe, do something different. And a lot of people are client facing. They are always on the street or on the road, dealing with the clients. So, those kind of opportunities. Then I think the need of the hour is more collaboration and innovative thinking, and creating those solutions for the clients. And when we spoke to our employees, they all felt that if you can create that kind of an environment, wherein there is more collaboration space, there is more face-to-face connect, wherein people can come together and think about those innovative solutions, probably we can do much better in front of our clients. And obviously that creates, additional opportunities for the organization. So I think those decisions have not been very, very difficult. And at the end of the day, I think what I have seen is a positive ROI in most of the cases, wherein we have taken those decisions. So obviously, I think we need to go with what is actually required by the workforce, what is required by our clients, and they then take those decisions. I hope I'm able to answer your question.
Okay.
Luckily, in financial terminology and being from finance background, we keep talking IRR, ROI and all. So you kept mentioning ROI a couple of times, I heard you. How do you quantify ROI when you are delivering a new office? Right. Because it's a project person or it's a CRE head which sell you the project, that I got a sustainable project LEED certified platinum, or whatever energy saving, blah, blah, blah. So how as a CFO, because you've got a cost pressure, how you quantify ROI in terms of financial gains or financial results or reduction in the cost? Because same time you also did mention about your employee satisfaction, collaborative spaces and all.
Yeah. So as I said, I think I'm sure I think it's not a test for me in terms of how to calculate ROI. So let me give you a couple of examples. The direct and intangible, the indirect benefits that I spoke about. So the simpler one is more direct benefit that you see. So obviously, when you evaluate the business case, you look at the P&L projections, so how this is going to impact your P&L, the infrastructure cost, the IT cost, and how your profitability is going to move, whether it is accretive to your PTI or it is actually taking it a bit down. Then the cash flow impact, I think those are the 2 big things. And like any other project, you evaluate, so what's your NPV out of this business. So those things are simpler to evaluate and look at. The more difficult part is the indirect piece, as I said. So if my experience or my team tells me that this is the requirement, and this is not that we are all blind to those things, what is coming back from the workforce, what do they need, whether it is the agile work environment, work from home facilities, and all those things. So you can look at those things. So how it is actually going to impact, for example, I took that attrition thing. So if I am able to improve my attrition by 2%, how much I am able to save in terms of my hiring cost, in terms of my learning and development cost, training cost. So those things add to the overall business case and proposition. And obviously, I don't know about 300% either, but productive and happy employees certainly add to the overall business performance.
And the question to Arun. Arun, you are leading UHG in India, and I'm fortunate to see one of your property here and abroad. How do you see your property in relation to abroad and India? Is of the same parameters what you deliver in here and what you deliver in US?
I think just to give you an example, my office in Hyderabad, recent office in Hyderabad, we built at 27 rupees per square feet. And a similar office was done in Minnesota at 450 rupees a square feet. So it's 1:20 almost, or 1:16. So, and qualitatively, we have same suppliers for all the key items. It's a global rate contract. Where if I get furniture from Steelcase or lights from Philips or false ceiling from X supplier or carpet from Y supplier, it's the same across the world. And of course, we have some taxation benefits here, being export oriented, but qualitatively, it's very similar. The look and feel aesthetics are very, very similar, because the graphics, the reception, how it is designed, we are not allowed to fool around. It has to be similar. So, the cost advantages are there, and somehow I think we in the learning curve, and especially for BPO and ITES industry, I think we are ahead of the curve. I may be biased, but we are ahead of the curve as compared to most the balanced world or even developed countries in terms of efficiency, in terms of being able to produce optimization, and costs, of course. Labor costs, low labor costs do help, but material cost, in spite of same suppliers, I think we are able to maintain that edge. And that, I guess, will sustain this industry. Of course, the talent is a big factor, but in terms of costs, in terms of optimization, in terms of look and feel, and efficiencies, real estate has a role. And my cost is generally between 10 to 12, 13%, including depreciation in the overall cost. So if I am able to reduce 10%, that adds 1% directly to the bottom line. So that's a very, very significant contribution. So have I answered you? So in terms of look and feel, anywhere across the world,
it's not
it will be the same.
Look and feel, I understand. It's the standards, basically, the parameters. That's very, very important, because somewhere, with due respect to all the colleagues out here and all the, panelists, my point was that have you implemented the same standard
Correct.
which you follow globally? Or are there some concession or other, some cuts there on the ground?
No, as I mentioned, we have global rate contracts and global vendors, including JLL.
So my final things, you mentioned it about the office space and cabins. The gentleman mentioned about 10 by 12 feet and all. So the final question comes to start with us only, with the mindset and the change management. Are we ready to leave our own cabin than to go and propose the management that there should be no cabins in the floors and there should be no workstation earmarked for everyone? So that was one of the point which Arun, to you, whether you did mention about the cabins and the private offices required.
Yeah. So it's very individual. It's always difficult, challenging, but if it is driven from the top, it does happen. And very often, in my past experience, I've seen, yes, take everybody out of the cabin, but not me. So, but gradually, it has become a way of life. In most of the modern offices, the number of cabins are reducing, which is good. As I mentioned, we only have 3 kinds of offices. A lot of delayering has happened. So, and 1 cabin per 100 workstations is the norm. Whereas, when I started my career, it used to be probably 1:5. So from jumping 1:5 to 1:100, I think it's been a major change, and I'm sure it will further reduce. Having said that, I'm not personally against cabins. Some people probably, their work demands that, whether it is data privacy or the kind of strategic things which have that layer of confidentiality. So there's no harm in their being in cabins. For other departments, there's a lot of debates happening. HR wants to be within those Chinese walls, and finance wants to be within those Chinese walls. IT wants, so everybody comes back that we want a secluded, separate area. So that is something which is always difficult, because you have to look at the statutory requirements, look at the confidentiality, look at the risks, potential risks. So it's a journey, but I'm really glad, at least in my couple of organizations where I worked in the past, that delayering did happen, and fairly successfully.
I think what I'll,
Do you have time?
okay, one last question.
Well, it's the last question, and it's the one that people... So I'm probably one of the few developers in the room, so I'll ask the question from a different perspective. And this has been an interesting and a little scary evening for me when I see that it's going from one person to one workstation to 3 people to one workstation, and I've told 8 people to one workstation. I am scared, believe me. So let me ask you what I can do for you. But the question is, as your workplace design changes, both in its need and its scope or look and feel, with more collaborative workspaces, etc., and you guys have all discussed as to how you're designing your spaces differently and thinking about them differently. From a developer's perspective, from a core and shell perspective, is there something that we can do differently to accommodate the needs that you have, apart from reducing rent?
Absolutely. I think it's a fairly, very, very important, because if your infrastructure doesn't support, there is only so much of innovation you can do, right? If it is only 5,000 square feet, what will you do with 5,000 square feet? So I think, at least, what we have seen, I think, is sometimes we try to really allocate one for cafeteria. I was just thinking, why cafeteria cannot be a workplace as well? Maybe that maybe give a break for 1 hour, 1.5 hours, but that can be a collaborative workspace. Sometimes, moving people in lifts is such a challenging thing within offices, because you have 25,000 people in one office, right? So I think, the lift lobbies that we create, so not comfortable in terms of, why can't, lift lobbies can't be creative workspaces and can really drive some proactive communication to people in terms of, breeding that culture that is required. And of course, the washrooms and all that, the experience of those things. I think, there is absolutely, I think there is a role for developers to be closely engaged in designing this future of workplace, because without the infrastructure, the base build is not built properly, there is only so much of lipstick that you can apply on it.
I'm sure rent reduction will go down nicely too, yeah? Okay, I'm sure everyone's really hungry, and I'm sure there's other questions out there. Perhaps we can continue over dinner. So I know this is a very relevant topic for us in the CRE world, as we face increasing demands for employee-centered workplace, coupled with advances in technology and data analytics and the human touch and so on. So, and all the other trends that Dr. Marie talked about. So very exciting times for us ahead. But thank you to our panelists for their time and for sharing their views with us. So please join me in thanking them.
Thank you. That's great.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you. Thanks, Chavi.